Hello, my name is Jacobus. I am 38 years old and I've been disabled for 8 of them. When I was 30, I tried to kill myself, didn't quite work out, got super disabled, and now I don't have to work anymore. So that's good for me, I guess. Haha. But yeah, it's been a trip living my life. I think throughout the world, and I've done a lot of weird shit. Uh, just kind of moved to Colorado at like 27. I think I'll put like 18 over here when we went to college. And fourth grade was like what, 4 plus kindergarten. So like 8 years old. So yeah, I moved to North Carolina around 8 years old. I was born in Maryland, which is kind of a boring farm-ridden place. A lot of crabs, a lot of seafood. Weather's a little rainy. It was nice enough. Had an okay only childhood, kind of living around dogs and cats. Yeah, it was peaceful. It was like in a private school when I was in kindergarten, so I learned too much about like multiplication and various things, so that when I went to public school in first grade, I just didn't do anything. I was bored, so I spent like 2 or 3 years kind of helping the other kids learn and not really understanding how school works. But eventually, tried to make some friends, tried to do some nerdy shit. I think I went to like some state fair stuff, did like some geography bees, that kind of thing. This is like peak early nerdity, and then we moved to North Carolina, and yeah, I had a job or something. I had a lot less friends, but somewhere around 11 or so, as we moved over there, I managed to get the internet and learn how that works. And that really expanded my horizons because I used to be a big library goer. It used to be a big, like, hey, how do we do this? Oh, I don't know. Go look it up. So the idea that I could just go online and look everything up really opened up my world. It helped quite a bit. I'd only really had some gaming experience, it's like my friends, and when I was younger, playing Super Nintendo over at their house, or Tomb Raider over at their house. I think I had like a Sega Genesis and the PlayStation 1. Eventually I traded them both in for like RAM for my computer and a video card, like a Voodoo 3 video card. So that's definitely when it started to happen, when I was like, hey, I'm 11 years old, 12 years old, I want to have a good computer to play a game. I don't know what that game even was. It could have been Tribes 2, it might have been later, but I used to love that on 56K. Playing big 32v32 FPS games, flying through the air, shooting people. That was amazing. Different loadouts. It was like one of the first hero shooters, I guess, of its time. You didn't really have XP, you just had different loadouts. But yeah, that was youth gaming. Most of my high school years were just kind of spent doing art. Just kind of drawing shit in my art classes to stay sane. Somewhere around 13 or 14, I had a lot of rage issues and had to go to a therapist to talk about them. Because I just wanted to kill everyone all the time. And mostly they helped me get through it. And it was like my mom's therapist because she was going through some problems in her marriage. So I saw her therapist briefly. And he mostly just kind of probably helped me more than anything realize I'm not insane. It's normal to feel this way, that kind of thing. So that was nice. I think that helped curb my ability to worry too much about grades, and I started just kind of not caring, passing anyway because I was smart enough. And I mostly spent that high school years kind of learning about music, learning about everything about religion I could. There was a lot of atheism chat rooms. I ended up going to a women's march for abortion rights against George Bush when I was 18. I took like a Greyhound bus, I think, all the way up to Washington, D.C. from North Carolina, like 400 miles, and spent like a weekend hanging out with people from the internet. And that was super interesting. A very different experience. I feel like I learned a lot about independence and what I wanted from life, and going out to that kind of thing alone. I did a similar thing when I went out to a concert in New Jersey. I think I drove up there. It was like 400 or 500 miles to go to a music festival for 3 days. And that really cemented like the idea that I can get far away from home and do good things. So I moved to Washington to go to college right when I finished high school, because I looked up a lot of colleges in Washington. I knew some people from the internet from there. They all seemed like pretty cool people because they were into the same music and had the same religious beliefs. In the South, it's very, very religious, very Christian, very painful, very oppressive. To the point where, like, growing up, we were told by sex ed classes that condoms have holes in them that AIDS can get through. You can't trust a condom. Like, they're just insane nonsense. That was just the way it was. But going out to Seattle, technically Olympia, Washington, to get my degree helped a lot. That at least gave me 4 years to figure out what I wanted to do with my mind and whether or not this college thing was for me. I did get a BA in whatever. It's in whatever I want it to be, because I went to a pretty hippie school. But in that 4 years, I joined the school newspaper, got a job at a copy center in the campus. I just kind of met as many people as I could the first year or two, because my anxiety was super high and I didn't really know how to make friends yet. Same with kind of girlfriends. So like, I hung out with a lot of people. I drank a lot. Went to as many like parties as I could. I basically started smoking here just so I could get social, and that worked out okay. I ended up finding a lot of Dungeons and Dragons groups. Never really played that growing up, but I played enough, video games that I knew what it was. So that ended up introducing me to my first person that I have ever been with, more or less. The first person I dated in real life for any sort of time, and that turned into marriage when I graduated college, where I graduated on a Friday and then got married on a Saturday. Would not recommend. Unless you want to get it out of the way. It's good to get one marriage out of the way so you can learn from it. But yeah, that marriage resulted in a lot of work from 22 to 27. My wife at the time did not really work, and I am now in a similar boat, so it's kind of ironic that the world has done this to me. But I spent the majority of that 4 or 5 years in between here trying to work at Shell stations, working 80-hour-a-week jobs, driving from place to place, just trying to pay the bills mostly. And I think I had a car repossession somewhere in here because I couldn't pay for that anymore. So I learned to take the bus a lot, and that was pretty cool. A lot of independence in Seattle. You can kind of go everywhere and not have to pay a lot. Would recommend. I went across the water a lot to Bellevue to go to work and tried to make myself into a career where I would make things eventually. But right around the time I cemented like what I wanted to do in that job that I got, I started working at a warehouse. I learned that I could probably divorce my wife, figured that out. That was a struggle unto itself. A lot of weird stories in there. Like, we had bed bugs in our house because it was so fucking filthy. Like, we had dishes piling up that she wouldn't do, so I just threw them all out one day and left like 2 of everything. And that was what we had from then on. Real just classic marriage destruction kind of stuff. The end of that marriage, I had a broken clock on the wall, and I had my wedding ring placed on top of it, and it seemed kind of stopped as a metaphor forever at that point. It made a lot of sense when I think back on that time. I was not real happy. We got out of the marriage eventually there. It's pretty cheap. It's like a couple $100. It doesn't take a lot of effort, as long as both parties don't have a lot going on, which we did not. So thankfully, that sorted itself out. I found a job at the PP, the Privateer Press. And from there, we learned to pack products, ship products. They make like little wee miniatures, essentially. Small metal miniatures initially, and then plastic combinations later. Little robots, giant yetis, spellcasters that have like pistols that shoot flintlocks and powered armor that lets them fly, that kind of thing. But I spent at least 4 years there, which is about as long as I do anything, if you've learned anything so far. My marriage was about as long. My college experience, my interest in things usually lasts about 4 years. So you can imagine right around what happened at 27. As we were working this nice job, trying to work our way up the ladder, we started making resin manufactured miniatures all the time, learning to make chemical combinations, learning safety procedures. Eventually I was managing like 13 people. And I thought, probably more than, probably deserve more money is my initial thought. So, yeah, we tried to go to our bosses and get raises periodically. It worked a little bit. And eventually I was like making sub $15 an hour at the time. And I was managing 13 people. And I felt like maybe $1 a person was pretty reasonable. So I asked for that. They said no. And I gave them my 2 weeks notice. And then my friend had at the same time moved out to Colorado, wanted to start a business together, and thought that maybe I would like to join him. And so we did that. Packed up everything, we left everything behind, we shipped it all out to Colorado. And in less than a year, I think, we started a small business called Adventurers Quarter. The quarter for adventurers to hang out. It was a small game store concept. See if I can find some old pictures, maybe. Essentially just a tabletop gaming situation. It's pretty nice. Very interesting for a while until it became real horrific. But that is typically how it goes. Not sure we'd actually have anything saved in our old folders, but figured I would take a look and see. Don't believe so. Yeah. Looks like we've finally deleted it all, so yeah. There's some pictures of it online. I think I have an old blog that's still up as well, which, had some of my tales of adventure trying to do things. Which you can see here, adventurersquarter.blogspot.com. What an exciting time that was. I tried to blog my experiences a little bit. People seem to like them. Not many readers, obviously. It's Blogspot, and mostly local people. But it was an interesting concept. We mostly had daily events for gaming, and eventually started trying to sell like refrigerated drinks and snacks and the like to make up ends. A lot of magic cards. I think I sold 10,000 magic cards on the internet, and I had input every single one of those cards into a database by hand, so it was quite the experience. I never played Magic before I opened a game store, but I don't have the same attachment to it as I used to. It was a difficult time. Eventually, after about a year or so of running the business, it started to have trouble making money fast enough, and we couldn't keep things stocked efficiently in the store, so it was always bare shelves or weird problems. But yeah, my co-owner and friend left the company. I told him I wanted to keep going because I had nothing else to live for, honestly. I had uprooted my entire life. This had become my identity. I was trying to become like a small business owner in the community and was looked up to by like hundreds of kids and people in the area, so I wasn't about to leave it. But it lasted another year or two after that. It's really hard to sell enough cards to keep the doors on, and eventually it was just too much debt. I couldn't pay my taxes or, anything else. I was basically living off of burritos I could get next door. I met a girlfriend at some point during this operation of the business, and then we broke up when I was just running it on my own because I was basically just losing my mind and not making any money to contribute to anything. I didn't have an income. I was just watching the store die around me. So she naturally had to move on and find someone else, and I moved into the back of my own game store for 9 months-ish. I was basically homeless, trying to make the store work, and then I did a GoFundMe, I believe, to try to raise some money and see if it was worth keeping. That money, I feel like, fucking didn't go anywhere. I barely remember how much money we made. Maybe we didn't even meet our goals, so it didn't have to happen. I don't know. It did not go well, certainly. There's some old notes I have for myself, I'm sure, but it was a fun time. We did a lot of interesting events. Eventually, the experience itself of running the store and living in the store and watching it go bankrupt around me made me lose my mind. And at the beginning of 2016, I shut down the store, moved into an apartment on my own somewhere, tried to get a job in resin manufacturing like I used to do, because that seemed like the nearest thing to sanity I could do. So I spent that time, briefly, trying to work as a resin person, trying to get back into manufacturing, have a normal life, pay my bills, get everything sorted out with the bankruptcy of the store, and get my debts sorted away. And I did. Got them all out of the way in the summer. Managed to pay it all off. And then I just kept working until my car broke down. When my car started having trouble, it was already pretty old, but right around the winter months, in November I think, or October, it started having trouble starting, or it just died at a certain point, and there was no good way to fix the car. It was too expensive to fix. And I couldn't get a loan or anything because I didn't have any credit anymore, and I couldn't really afford to commute to work. And the idea that I couldn't really get to work safely or do my job like I'd been trying to do for the last 6 months after having failed for 3 years prior at Adventurous Quarter, something in me broke. And when my car broke down that last time, and my debts just settled in front of me again after I just got out from under it, I couldn't take it anymore. So one day I took an Uber up north to Boulder. I walked up a really large cliff that I thought was large enough. I got out of the way, made sure nobody could see me, just hung out listening to some music, drinking some vodka. And eventually I leapt off that cliff. And about a month later I woke up in the hospital. I've been pumped full of fentanyl for 2 or 3 weeks as they repaired my body from all these 8 or 9 surgeries. And that is how it do. Sometimes you got a crappy wheelchair drawing, but that's what we be. So yeah, depression is no joke. It fucked me up early here when I was young. We moved a lot and I was alone again, didn't have any friends. It fucked me up pretty hard in my 20s because I was alone with just my wife and she was exacerbating the situation. And then I was alone again right before I killed myself. And I say kill myself because I jumped off a cliff and had to be rescued with a helicopter and flown 40 miles to be saved. So I feel like there was some success there, like I definitely died. And I felt like I died because I spent so many weeks hallucinating, dreaming, resolving my fucking PTSD with my whole life. Because fentanyl will do that to you, Gives you time to think. My mom eventually took me off the drugs because she came over to the hospital. But those drugs helped me so much to accept when I was awake, finally, that I can't use my legs. And at the time, I couldn't use my left arm either. Like, I had to spend 2 months learning to use my left arm with a bunch of braces. And eventually, get to a rehab facility where I hadn't been able to walk up until that point, and then they taught me how to use a walker for like 30 days and then kicked me out, basically, just because it was like $5,000 a month. So yeah, we tried to go from there to living with her old ex-girlfriend. She let me stay with her for a while until I got my own place. I think that took about 4 or 5 months of taking my walker up a second-story apartment. So that was fun to get used to. Would not recommend. I got into a house with like a bunch of roommates when I was maybe 31, I'd say. It was a house with 5 other roommates, so there's 3 people upstairs, 3 people downstairs, and while I was there, 13 people came and went. It was horrific, psychotic. There was a lot of domestic violence, a lot of drug use, a lot of insane people coming and going. But at the end of that, I did find someone cool, and I met her. And from there, we've been on the up. We've been into the good times. For the last 5 years of my disabled life, I've been with someone I love and who is just as insane as me in a whole different way. You know, like I've got a lot of lifetime issues. She's got a lot of the ones that match mine. So we get along just fine. She's a beautiful person. She's really smart. She works all the time so that I don't have to. She's helping people every day in her school district. It's very interesting. It's odd how life can change from living just alone all the time on your computer, looking up things and becoming friends with people on the internet, trying to live in the world and then feeling only a crippling depression from trying, where you're like, I'll try to do marriage. Nah, that's not good. I'll try to run my own business. No, that's not good either. I'll try to just work on my own like a blue collar guy. Nope, actually that's not possible. So all I've done essentially in the last 8 years of my disabled life is Dota. I've played 10,000 hours of the game since 2012. It's right around here ish. And it keeps me sane. It keeps my brain working. It's surprisingly exercisey. Would recommend. It's very nice. It's not peaceful anymore, but when you've had a life like this, it feels peaceful by comparison to have that much predictability to a game every time you play, even though it's so unpredictable. But yeah, it's been a lot of rim world as well, a lot of world building. Just because, if you're alone in your house all day, the best thing you can do is build a world that you want to see. And that's what I try to do when I play strategy games. I try to do something that I couldn't do here. I try to live that escapist life, because that's what it's for. It's meant, like Dota is here to remind me that every day I can win, even if I lose. I can learn something. That's terrible writing, by the way. I'm sorry. But, essentially every day has a chance to win. There's no more constant failure. There's no more like littering depression. There's no more, oh, what's my degree even for? It's not trying to write. It's not trying to make art. Art happens still. I draw a little bit here and there. I'm trying to finish something now, but it's taken me a couple months. I just pull a little bit on it every day. You win a little bit of Dota every day. You learn something new every day. That's where pretty much my resolution of the last 38 years has come to, is that you can't plan for anything. You can't know what you're going to be into. You can't know what's going to work. You can't know who's going to love you. But you can kind of go with the flow. You can try to change the things you can, and not try to change the things you can't. Just be content with that little thing inside you. But yeah, this has been kind of rambly. Hope you enjoyed my TED Talk, or whatever the fuck this is. Subscribe, I don't know, comment. You want more of this kind of nonsense, or something else?